Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, the motion picture you're about to see contains scenes so terrifying, the public must be given grave warning.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. Except this week we are not doing a movie. We are actually doing Shivers this week. Shivers, of course, is our paranormal, true crime, cryptid, all that good stuff, like put together, almost like a true crime, cult, paranormal, everything like that. Podcast where we discuss, the paranormal, the supernatural, weird stuff that's out there. I am your host, of course, the Sewer Dweller. We are coming to you live from Dayton, Ohio, and there's a reason we are actually 2 hours early, 2 hours earlier than we normally come to you guys live. But this week, here in Dayton, Ohio, school is back in session, and that means one thing: football is back here in Dayton. Tip City, Tip City, Ohio, Tippecanoe High School. Basically, my oldest plays defense for the Tip City High School football team, and I will be going to a game tonight, to the first game of the season. So, kind of had to start it a little bit early because these things tend to run a little long. So hopefully, I can get more people in here to listen, or you guys want to, listen to it later. It's always available on the Owlite Network, on the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast page on X, and of course you could go to Spotify. If you only want the audio version, you can go to Spotify, uh, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcasts, anywhere basically that Spreaker puts podcasts out to. You can go there and listen to just the audio version instead of having to watch. But this week we are continuing or this month, I guess we do this. We do Shivers about once a month, maybe a little more. The schedule is going to get a little weird here in a couple of weeks, only because I do, between football season and I do work for Hell's Dungeon, a haunted house here in Dayton, Ohio. I will probably have to switch days of the week that I do the podcast, because I do have to be there by a certain time to get in the costume, to get into makeup, and prepare myself for the night. But this week on Shivers, or this month on Shivers, we are continuing our journey into the 50 states. The cryptids of the 50 states, basically the cryptids of America. As we did last time, we spun the wheel and we are heading to Vermont. Last time, of course, we started in Ohio because that is my state, my home state that I live in. We spun the wheel and Vermont popped up. Vermont, it's interesting. They don't really have a lot of cryptids. and the ones they do are kind of questionable, but we're still going to look at them. We're going to look at the stories and things like that. I have a few other things that might lead more into the paranormal than actually the cryptid side of the supernatural. Um, but I think the stories are still pretty interesting as anyways. So guys, without further ado, let's get the week started as we always do. Except this week we're not going to do horror movie or haunted house news. We are going to do weird, stupid news. Basically stupid funny stories from around the world um that I have found this week, and there's a couple of doozies. So I figure, when we do the Shivers episodes, we'll take a little bit of a week off from horror movies and things like that. Next week we'll be back with some horror movies, or with our weekly horror movie and the horror movie news and haunted house news. Haunted house news will probably start to die down a little bit as everyone's starting to hire right now. Um, Most of the major theme parks out there have announced all their haunts and all their houses and everything like that they're going to do, because you got to remember, you got to realize, guys, we open in less than a month. um in case you haven't noticed, there is a Friday the 13th next month, which I will be doing something special for Friday the 13th, don't worry. um our house, so the Hell's Dungeon, will be opens on the 14th, the Saturday. um Whereas, so I will be able to do a podcast that Friday. Um, Beforehand, we're gonna do something special. We might do a Friday the 13th movie. We might do something different. We'll see what's going on. We'll see what everybody wants. Let me know. I really would like to interact with you guys. So if you guys have anything really you want me to do, just let me know. But guys, we're gonna start out. We're gonna go all the way over across the country, across the pond to the United Kingdom. I don't know if anybody's seen this story yet or not, but this is pretty funny actually. Um, so imagine you live in London. You're on the River Thames. You're enjoying the day, fishing or sailing or boating or anything like that. Um, and a giant warship comes floating up the Thames. I mean, it's normal. A warship floating up the Thames is normal. The Tame River is normal because it comes from the English Channel, the Atlantic Ocean. So, there's probably ships coming in and out of there all the time. Except this one is flying the German flag, and it's blasting the Imperial Death March. So, Berlin, for the Associated Press, Germany's Navy says there was no deeper message than the choice to blast the famed Imperial Death March. They call it Darth Vader's theme song in the Star Wars films, from one of its warships as it cruised down the River Thames through London this week. A bystander captured the spectacle on Monday on video, which quickly went viral on social media. The song selection made waves across Europe. No shit, I would be fucking terrified if I'm, especially if it's been 80 years. Let's not pretend. It's been 80 years since World War II. And anybody who knows their history of World War II, London especially took a really big fucking hit in World War II. So yeah, a German warship floating the River Thames playing the Imperial Death, essentially dun 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 dun. You're damn right it would scare the shit out of everyone. But the song selection, yeah, the warship was in the area for training and dropped anchor in London for a normal supply stop, the German Navy said. The commander can choose the music freely, the Navy said in a statement Thursday. The choice of music has no deeper message. Essentially, he's saying, please don't get pissed off at us. We didn't do this. This guy is kind of just being a dick and playing this, going through the capital of a country we bombed the shit out of 80 years ago. We promise nothing bad is coming. Other video recorded the warship, the Braunschweig, or I guess Braunschweig, because I think the W in German, I think the W is more pronounced more like a V. Playing London Calling, the 19 other video recorded the warship, the Braunschweig, playing London Calling, the 1979 hit from British rock band The Clash, upon its arrival in London. The song's title is drawn from the BBC World Service Station identification in World War II, and its lyrics include the lines, London calling to the zombies of death, quit holding out and draw another breath. The Braunschweig is named for a city in Germany's Lower Saxony, an area far, far away from the United Kingdom, and part of the country's newest class of ocean-going corvettes. Guys, I got the video. I have the video. And just look at this and tell me how terrified you would be if you were just a regular citizen out for a nice day on the river and this happens. Somebody please tell me you wouldn't be terrified if that happened. If you didn't know anything about it, you just happened to look up and there's a fucking warship, a German warship floating through England, through the river that flows through England, heading towards London with everybody, with all the sailors on top deck, standing at attention, and the fucking Darth Vader's music is playing. That just is hilarious. I'm sorry, that's hilarious to me. So basically, yeah, that's really it for that story. Nothing's come out. I haven't seen anything out of England or anything being pissed off about it, like the government or anything. I think it's just a German seaboat captain just being a dick. But let's come on back over to America, not too far away from here. From NBC News, you guys aren't gonna like. Some of you might not like this one, but a Kentucky man who hacked into the state death registry systems to fake his own death in a bid to avoid paying over $100,000 in outstanding child support has been sentenced to over 6 years in prison, prosecutors announced Tuesday. I've seen a couple of stories, and there's a couple of stories out there that are actually saying that he's going to jail for like 9 years, as he should. Jesse Kipp, 39, was sentenced Monday in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Kentucky in a plea agreement on charges of computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. In January of 2023, Kipp accessed the Hawaii Death Registry system using the information of a excuse me. Hold on one second, guys. I hope you guys didn't hear that, but I had a little bit of a frog in my throat. Using the information of a physician living in another state and created a case for his own death. Prosecutors said in a news release, he completed a Hawaii death certificate worksheet, assigned himself as the medical certifier for the case, and certified his death using the doctor's digital signature. Resulting in his being registered as a deceased person in many government databases, the release said. Officials said he admitted to faking his own death in part to avoid outstanding child support obligations. He owed more than $116,000, according to the sentencing memorandum, and he didn't stop there. Kiff also infiltrated other death registry systems, private business networks, and government and corporate networks using credentials he stole from real people. Then he tried to sell access to those networks on the dark web. Prosecutors said in the release. Kiff acknowledged having databases of personal identifiable information on his electronic devices, including social security numbers and medical records, which he sold to international buyers, including individuals from Algeria, Russia, and Ukraine. The sentencing memorandum said the damages to the state death registry systems included nearly $80,000 in repair costs, as well as untold consequences in trying to rectify the networks and the harm to the individuals whose personally identifying information was exposed, stolen, or misused. The filing said Kiff must serve 85% of his prison sentence, and upon his release, will be under the supervision of the United States Probation Office for 3 years. His attorney did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A federal grand jury initially indicted Kiff in November on 5 counts of computer fraud and 3 counts of aggravated identity theft, the Justice Department said in a news release. He was accused of illegally accessing state websites for Arizona, Hawaii, and Vermont, as well as the businesses Guest Tech Interactive Entertainment Limited and Milestone Incorporated. Carlton S. Shear, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky, called his plot cynical and destructive. This case is a stark reminder of how damaging criminals with computers can be and how critically important computer and online security is to all of us. He said, fortunately, through the excellent work of our law enforcement partners, this case will serve as a warning to other cyber criminals, and he will face the consequences of his disgraceful conduct. So basically, in a gist of it, this dickhead, that's probably the nicest way to call him, owed $116,000 in child support. Decided, because I guess he's already been a cyber criminal, decided to go on a website or go on the government database or something and fake his own death. Basically, tell the world that he's dead to get out of paying $116,000 worth of child support. That's fucking ridiculous. But like I said, the article I'm reading here says 6 years. I've read a couple more articles that said 9 years because I originally got this out of I want to say it was one of the papers in the UK. And I turned around and looked it up on Google just to try to get a deeper story because it wasn't that long of a story on the article. It wasn't that long of an article that I found it on. So I went ahead and looked it up in America, and I got this NBC article. So yeah, I've seen like at least a couple articles that said he got 9 years. This one says he got 6 years. He's got to serve 85% of it, so he's going to be gone for at least 4 or 5 years. And then he's probably never going to be allowed to own a computer or anything like that again. So yeah, basically justice served. But moving on, we're going to go all the way to San Francisco for this next story. The world's only self-driving taxi company has been forced to fix a fleet of cars after residents complained about their constant honking. Waymo's autonomous cars arrived in a car park in San Francisco, California a few weeks ago, where they wait between jobs. However, the cars were also installed with an update that made them beep their horns whenever another car reversed too close to them. Christopher Cherry, who lives next to the car park, told Sky's U.S. partner NBC Bay Area he was really excited to have Waymo in the neighborhood when they moved in, thinking it would bring more security and quiet to the area. Instead, the taxis beeped at each other right through the night as they parked or set off on a journey, making it hard to sleep. We started out with a couple of honks here and there, and then as more and more cars started to arrive, the situation got worse, Mr. Cherry said. The cars are robotic and they're honking at each other, and there's no one in the cars when it's happening, and that's absurd. One resident got so irate that she started live streaming the car park on YouTube, gathering tens of thousands of views on some of her videos. Help, says Sophia Tung at the end of one of her videos, where the cars can be heard beeping late at night. Mr. Cherry said the honking happens daily at different levels, with the most intense honking occurring around 4 a.m. and at evening rush hour times. It's very distracting during the workday, but most importantly, it wakes you up at 4 in the morning, he said. The cars appear to head off to their charging depot at around 4 a.m., a parade of autonomous taxis that caused great anticipation on the YouTube live stream. Hundreds of viewers eagerly waited for the cars to start leaving on Wednesday morning. It's starting, everyone, said one video. Parade time, said another one. Miss Tongue's viewers have even made a Google spreadsheet with time codes for the most interesting moments in the car park, such as excessive honking or a fun bit of parking by one of the cars. The taxi firm, which is owned by Alphabet, Google's parent company, said the honking problem is now fixed. We recently introduced a useful feature to help avoid low-speed collisions by honking if other cars get too close while reversing toward us, said a Waymo spokesperson to Sky News. It has been working great in the city, but we didn't quite anticipate it would happen so often in our own parking lots. We've updated the software so our electric vehicles should keep the noise down for our neighbors moving forward, they said. As the cars left their car park at 4 a.m. on Wednesday, the honking did indeed appear to be solved. Miss Tung confirmed to her hundreds of live viewers in the chat they didn't honk. That would piss me off. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if I'd notice it. I'm originally from Virginia Beach, and in Virginia Beach we have Oceana Naval Air Station. And those jets fly over all the freaking time, all hours of the day and night. To the point where you can always tell who's from the area and who's not, because basically everybody who's not from the area would be when the jet flew over, they'd be looking up going, oh, look at that, it's a jet, it's an F-16, it's an F-22. Anybody from the area is looking down and just continuously walking, cussing the jets. Or if you're talking to someone, literally the conversation stops and then immediately starts right back up where you left off, as if nothing happened 30 to 45 seconds later after the jet is completely gone. I used to live within a mile of the beach. It took me like 30 minutes to walk to the beach. And we weren't that far from Oceana, and I could literally see the pilots as they were landing. So I can't say that the honking would bother me too much, but I can definitely see, how aggravating it could be. How aggravating it could be to be kept up all night because these stupid fucking cars next to us are honking all the time. But moving on, I believe I can't remember where this one was from. I think it was England, but it's about It's a Reddit story. Customer horrified after spotting sandwich shop with closed for sex for 30 minutes sign. A hungry customer was left with a sense of shock and disappointment after visiting his local sandwich shop, only to find that it had been closed for half an hour for sex. There's nothing worse than nipping to your favorite shop only for it to be closed or unavailable. I will say the story comes out of England, but I don't think the shop is in England. But worse than that is seeing a sign that leaves your toes curling. Sure, we've all seen messages on shop windows saying they've had to close for a short time, perhaps to allow the shopkeep to run an errand in town or take a break. I see them all the time here, where they basically shut down for 10 minutes so somebody can go take a piss. One shopper got more than they bargained for recently after spotting some bizarre signage on a visit to their local sandwich shop. After sharing a snap to Reddit of a handwritten note attached to the door, the users of the weird subreddit were split between feelings of disgust and humor. For the sign in question read, "Closed for sex, be back in 30 minutes, thank you." Another eagle-eye Redditor soon spotted a "Beware of wet floor" sign on the shop floor, only adding to the nausea in the comment section. I seem to have lost my appetite for a good old-fashioned ballpark wiener, The original poster declared. Back in 30 minutes, that's a bit optimistic. Must be a 10-minute drive home, one person joked in response. Another quip, 30 minutes? Right, more like 7 and then a quick nap. A third question, why would you write that? Just why? A fourth added, weird flex, but I respect it. While a fifth referenced a Simpsons episode paraphrasing Homer, hey, what'll I tell the boss? Tell him that I'm going to the back seat of my car with the woman I love and I won't be back for 10 minutes. I do remember that episode where they were basically doing a parody of Officer and a Gentleman with I think it was Deborah Winger and Richard Gere. Other people couldn't help but add further sexual puns to the post, with one adding, "Looks like the 30 minutes are almost up. They're in the back grabbing a mop." Somebody wheezed the juice. Somebody wheezed the juice. And a second added, "Well, at least they posted 2 signs. No doubt what's going down." Where am I? There it is. Let's see what going down. Then that's the end of the story. So yeah, what would you guys do? Well, think about what would you guys do if you went to a shop and there's just you go to a Subway or a sub shop near you or a restaurant or a fast food joint or somewhere, and there's a sign on the door that just says, "Hey, be back in half an hour. Kind of having sex right now." I mean, yeah, it's a restaurant. I really don't want that on my food, but I'm not gonna yell at the guy. I'm not gonna get mad at the guy. Um, but those are all the bigger stories I have for this week. I do have a couple of smaller ones here that I found this. It's almost like a weekly wrap up, kinda. I already did that one. Richard E. Brown of Kershaw County, South Carolina, filed a lawsuit on August 1st against Buc-ee's, the convenience store chain. Who the hell's mad at Buc-ee's? Who the hell gets mad at Buc-ee's? Buc-ee's is awesome. We're getting one here in Ohio finally. It's going to take a while to build, but we are getting one here in Ohio in this part of the state. Nowhere close to where I live, of course, but we are getting one. Um, and we're all excited for it because, again, Buc-ee's is awesome. If you haven't been to Buc-ee's, you don't know what you're missing. Um, Brown was walking on a sidewalk at a store in Florence County, South Carolina in 2022 when he tripped over a rope that was holding down the large inflatable beaver mascot, which caused him several injuries, including to his right shoulder. The lawsuit claims that Buc-ee's was aware of the dangerous condition of the rope that was holding the inflatable beaver in place. Brown is suing for negligence and seeking unspecified financial damages. Buc-ee's has not responded. And unfortunately, Buc-ee's is going to lose that one. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, Buc-ee's isn't going to win that, unfortunately, because that was kind of stupid to leave the rope like that. Now, the thing about it is, if it's not on the sidewalk, they might. It's not negligence. So we'll see. Let's go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. On August 12th, the Allegheny River was the site of a massive dredging and cleanup conducted by Three Rivers Waterkeeper, an environmental group. Trib Live reported that in just 4 hours, the operations pulled about 50,000 pounds of vehicle parts from the river, along with an intact, basically a full-size Volkswagen Beetle, bicycles, skateboards, and a mattress. Who the fuck dumped a mattress into the? If you were to dive down there right now, you'd see a solid tangle of vehicles," said Captain Evan Clark. Many of the cars were thought to be from a long closed downtown parking lot. To see this cleanup work, it shows that people care about the rivers and they're getting better. People cared about the rivers so much they threw a fucking beetle in there. Good Lord. Let's see. Moving on, we're going to go to Lucerne Valley, California. Even after Cody Mortensen, 28 of Lucerne Valley, California, was told that he would probably die, he insisted on biking across Regent's Slide, a massive landslide near Big Sur. The Mercury News reported that on August 9th, Mortensen talked with a construction worker who said the road was not passable, but the biker said he was going to try anyways. Sure enough, Mortensen fell more than 100 feet toward the ocean, abandoned his bicycle, and climbed down towards the beach, where he was rescued by Betancourt and Big Surfire. He had hit his head and seemed concussed, witnesses said, and his arm was cut. Mortensen faces charges of wanton disregard to obey a person directing traffic and failing to obey traffic signs. So he's going to get a ticket. But that's that Christmas story situation. You want a BB gun? Well, you shoot your eye out. No, I won't. Then he damn near shot his fucking eye out. Oh, this guy. Hey, you can't go that way. There's a landslide, and you're gonna fall to your death. You're gonna fall pretty far. You're not the boss of me. Rhodes his bike. Guess what? Fell 100 feet. Thrill seekers will want to put Berlin, Germany on their list of spots to visit. Yahoo News reported on August 10th atop a 40-story hotel near the former East Berlin's TV tower is the highest swing in Europe, which allows riders to soar out over the city about 400 feet below. Feels a bit like flying, said Victoria Voigt, 34. Riders pay about $22 for 5 minutes on the swing, which opened in June and has thrilled more than 100 riders per day. Pascal Vent, 36, tried the swing for his birthday. I came here to feel a bit younger. Dude, you're 36. Lord. Let's see. Still in California. And there's, everybody makes fun of Florida. There's a lot of California stories on this website. Residents of Feather Falls, California are barking mad over an incident that took place on August 8th. KCRA-TV reported the Butte County or Butte County Sheriff's BUTTE, say it how you want. County Sheriff's Office said Davina Corbin, 56, was found dead on the Black Hawk Trail after apparently being mauled by a pack of dogs. Max Hecker, who lives in the area, said the dogs are Great Danes that are known to terrorize people. They'd be out here in the road and you would have to wade through them, Hecker said. He said he and other neighbors had repeatedly contacted Butte County Animal Control to no avail. They didn't do anything about any of this, he said. That lady should have never died. Officials rounded up the dogs and a search warrant was issued at a property across from where Corbin was found. So it doesn't say who owns the dogs. I worked with dogs for a while. I worked at a dog kennel and I came across there was a few Great Danes that would come in. Even at my last job, people were allowed to bring their dogs in, and we had a gentleman with a very large Great Dane. And needless to say, they were actually very sweet dogs. But I'm also somebody who believes that the dogs aren't the assholes, the owner is the asshole. So yeah. Sad story. I'm trying to find where the funny ones. Give me 1 second, guys. Here's one. On August 13th in Detroit, 36th District Judge Kenneth King got a little carried away while trying to serve as a deterrence to a teenager in his courtroom, the Detroit Free Press reported. The 16-year-old girl was in court on a field trip when she fell asleep during King's 45-minute address to the group between hearings. King threatened her with jail and contempt of court and forced her to wear a jail uniform and handcuffs before ultimately freeing her. I wanted to instill in this kid that this is not a joke. This is a very serious situation. She fell asleep, dude. Marissa Ebersol Wood, the leader of the nonprofit group that organized the trip, said, "We have spoken to the student and her parents, and the young lady was traumatized by the judge's unnecessary disciplinary treatment and scolding. The group of students should have been simply asked to leave the courtroom if he thought they were disrespectful, King said. He has reached out to the family with an offer to mentor the girl, but not received. Yeah, they're going to tell him to go fuck himself. And why wouldn't they? Like, no, stay the fuck away from my kid. Do a few more of these, and we'll go ahead and take our break. And then we'll get into the cryptids of Vermont. Lalita Kai. I'm probably butchering that name. The last name is literally spelled Kayyi. Or Kai. 50 was divorced on July 27th, or discovered on July 27th in a forest about 280 miles from Mumbai, India. The BBC reported, chained to a tree. Kai initially told her rescuers that her husband had shackled her to the tree and left her in the forest to die without food or water. But police and her doctor say the American woman tied herself to the tree. After treatment in a psychiatric hospital, Kai admitted that she is not married and was distressed because her visa and money were running out. Her doctor sang Hamitra Fuli. I'm butchering this name. I know I am. Said Kai's condition is improving, and she has been in touch with her family in the United States. Wow, yeah. Why? I'm not even gonna go into that. That'll probably get people in trouble. Georgetown County, South Carolina. Sheriff's officers were called to a home on July 28th on reports of an assault in progress. Fox 59 TV reported. Deputies were told that the fight started while siblings Anthony Harper and Hope Harper were cooking chicken. Hope Harper allegedly asked her brother why he didn't season the chicken so it could crust up. Season your food, folks. Season your food, the report said. When Hope called Anthony a dumb dog, he pushed her into a table and punched her. Someone else in the home fired a 9mm handgun into the ceiling, hoping to stop the brawl. But no, Hope retrieved a steak knife and started swinging it at her brother. I'm going to take a guess and say there's some underlying issues here. There's a lot more to this than cooking chicken wrong. And there's I don't know who the hell the guy with the 9mm that shoots into the air. Like, how many fucking movies have you watched? It doesn't work in real life. Next, their grandmother swatted Hope with a broom until she backed up. So grandma took a broom as the girl was swinging a steak knife at her brother. Grandma shows up with a broom and just starts smacking the shit out of her. But Anthony, his chef cred cruelty question, picked up a can of Raid bug spray and sprayed Hope on the neck and face until she grabbed a can and sprayed him back. They were macing each other with Raid. Oh my God, each of the siblings is pressing charges against the other. Both were released on bond. I don't mean to laugh, but there are some serious underlying issues there if you sit there and if all this is going on. Like, basically, Hope questioned her brother about his cooking, why he didn't season the chicken. Again, season your food, season your chicken. It makes it so much better. So he gets pissed off at her, pushes her into a table, and starts punching her. She then grabs a steak knife and starts swinging it at him. Apparently, somebody at some point picked up a gun and just fired it into the ceiling because that's what we fucking do. And then they started fighting some more until Grandma showed up with a broom and just started smacking Hope, trying to, I guess, get her to stop trying to stab her brother. The brother grabs a can of Raid and starts spraying the sister with it, which is very dangerous because that'll kill somebody. So the sister grabs it and starts spraying him with it. Imagine being a guest in his house. I wouldn't know if I'd be laughing my ass off or going, "Hey guys, thanks for the invite, but I'm gonna head out. Yeah, I'm gonna go." Like that's just fucking hilarious. Yeah, guys, I'm gonna tell you right now. I am just reading these stories that I have up here right now that I'm reading to you guys. I am reading these also for the first time. So, pardon me for laughing at that. That was hilarious. That is that. Where was that again? South Carolina. Yeah, that is the most redneck white trash bullshit I've ever heard. Oh Lord. Oh, we got about 150 people in and around Tokyo were stricken ill, and one person died in late July after eating grilled eel sold at a department store, the Associated Press reported. I think I saw this story earlier, and it wasn't very interesting. But the eel was prepared by a local restaurant chain and sold in the grocery area of the Kaikyu, Kaikyu, Kaikyu. I'm not Japanese. I'm sorry, guys. Department store officials said roasted eel is considered a tonic against the summer's extreme heat. More than 1,700 servings of the dish were sold at the shop. So yeah, like I said, that wasn't a very interesting story, but it's there. All right, hold on one second. Sorry about that, guys. Kid just got home from school. So moving on, let's see. Fine points of the law. Evans Lee Jr. of Atlanta passed away on October 26th of 2022. The Atlanta Black Star reported. Because he left no will, Georgia law called for the nearest living relative to ask the probate court to make them an administrator, which is just what Randy Watson, 48, did. The problem: Watson was not related to Lee. Was not related to Lee. Georgia's probate court does not require proof of being a rightful heir to an estate, so Watson became the executor, filling in false details on Lee's death certificate and listing Watson as the descendant's son. In response, Lee's nephew, Trahan Brown, was granted a court ordered paternity test that confirmed Watson was not related to the dead man. But before the court could reverse his executorship, Watson had cleared out most of Lee's belongings, sold his home, and collected his urn of ashes. There were never there was never an opportunity to go in the home, clean the home, none of that, said Brown's wife, Renee. Authorities have opened an investigation into Watson and the funeral home. I mean, the funeral home really didn't do anything wrong. To my knowledge, at least. Let's see. On July 31st, police responded to a fire in the early morning hours at a U-Haul business in Roseburg, Oregon. KEZI TV reported one van was fully engulfed in flames, and the fire was spreading to a second vehicle. Security footage from the area identified Jennifer Denise Holmes, 47, whose van with Nana's Sweet Treats on the side could be seen in the area. When officers spoke with Holmes, she admitted to siphoning gas from the U-Haul and then lighting a I think you guys know where this is going. She admitted to siphoning gas from the U-Haul and then lighting a cigarette. She was charged on August 3rd with first-degree criminal mischief and reckless burning. So not only are you stealing gas out of the U-Hauls, Your dumbass thought it was a good idea to light a cigarette after siphoning it. Someone want to take this chick back to high school, middle school, elementary school, whatever school, and let her know that gasoline itself is also a gas. It's not just a liquid, it's actually gas and fumes. And when the fumes are what basically the fumes are what helps things go kaboom when you light a spark near them. Let's see if there's any more. Give me a second, guys. I'm gonna. Okay, here's got a couple more. We'll do these last two real quick, and then we'll go ahead and take our break. But Katie Moran, or Moron, I don't really know. President of the World Apostolate of Fatima, USA, was taking pictures of the International Pilgrim Virgin statue of Our Lady of Fatima in Canton, Ohio, on August 2nd when she witnessed a miracle. She said. WJW-TV reported that Moran took the two subsequent photos, then saw that in the first one, Mary's eyes were open, and in the second, they were closed. The statue travels the world, spreading the message of Our Lady of Fatima. According to the theologians, mystically, her presence is there with the statue, said Moran. Larry Maganot, the statue's custodian, elaborated, "We know that she's wept 15 times. Moran believes Mary is sending a message to the world, but didn't specify what of course he's not going to specify what the message is. Isn't it funny every time one of these people see something? Like, I saw Jesus in toast. What does it mean? I don't know, just Jesus in toast. But, yeah. Hold on one second. Sorry again, guys. The kid is having issues. Let's see. Let's go to this last story. A handyman and electrician, Steve Wainwright, 61, of Cambridgeshire, England, needed a project in his retirement, Metro News reported. I felt a bit lost, he said. I looked at my tape measure and I thought, I wonder if I can build this 10 times its size. And he could, even with a giant retractable measuring tape. Wainwright's wife suggested a 10 times lipstick, so he obliged, and then went on to build pencils, keys, clothespins, and a 3-prong plug. He notices a difference in reaction between men and women. Men love his creations, and women say, "What on earth are you going to do with that? Where are you going to put that?" I will say I know a lot of people who are retired. When I worked for Frito-Lay, the Nabisco reps would come in, and they were all older people who had retired from their full-time jobs, turning around, and basically they're bored. They get bored. My wife's grandfather, 88 years old, he gets bored. He gets bored sitting around all the time, so he just finds random shit to do. That's what this guy did. But all right, guys, we've been going for about 48 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a very quick break. And then when we come back, we will jump into the cryptids of Vermont. See you in a couple of minutes.
Greetings and shabebans. We are the Retro Reductopus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Reductopus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Your King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Reductopus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
And welcome back to the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Sewer Dweller. We are here in Ohio, getting ready to travel all the way to Vermont for the Cryptids of Vermont. Again, we spun the wheel last month. I figure spinning the wheel is going to be a little better than just going in alphabetical order, because then, those who live in Vermont or Rhode Island or South Carolina, and that you'll be waiting a while to get chosen. This way you get a good chance of your state being selected and us exploring the cryptids. Vermont doesn't have a lot. Unlike when we get to Texas, we're probably gonna have to do 2 separate episodes for Texas, because there's 30 cryptids in Texas. Mainly because of how big it is and because of how vastly open Texas can be too. But we're going to explore these cryptids this week. Trying to think of what to say. So, say Vermont, of course, is in New England. I want to say it's the second northernmost state next to Maine. I want to say it goes Maine, then Vermont. I could be wrong on my geography there, but it's way up there in New England. It is called the Green Mountain State, and there's some interesting stuff going on. But we'll get to the cryptids here in a minute. Right now, let's do a little bit of history. Let's study a little bit of history on Vermont. Vermont is a state in the New England region of the northeastern United States, and it borders Massachusetts to the south and New Hampshire to the east, New York to the west, and the Canadian province of Quebec to the north. As of the 2020 U.S. Census, the state has a population of 643,503, ranking it as the second least populated U.S. state. Ahead of Wyoming. Wyoming is so big to only have the least amount of people there. But it's, again, wide open land, farmland, all that good stuff. Let's keep it that way too. Let's keep the developers out of Wyoming. It is the nation's 6th smallest state in area. The state's capital, of course, is Montpelier or Montpellier. I really don't know how to say it. And of course, the state's capital, Montpelier, or I'm going to say it how I say it, Montpelier, is the least populous United States capital. U.S. state capital. So basically, like here in Ohio, of course, our capital is Columbus. I don't gotta talk to you. I don't gotta tell you guys. You know what the state capitals are. But I guess it's least amount. This the smallest populated United U.S. state capital. No other U.S. state has a most populous city with fewer residents than Burlington. Vermont is also well known for being the largest producer of true maple syrup in the United States for over 200 years. Native Americans have inhabited the area for about 12,000 years. The competitive tribes of the Algonquin speaking Abenaki and Iroquoian speaking Mohawk were active in the area at the time of European encounter. During the 17th century, French colonists claimed the territory as part of the Kingdom of France's colony of New France. After the Kingdom of Great Britain began to settle colonies to the south along the Atlantic coast, the two nations competed in North America in addition to Europe. After being defeated in 1763 in the 7 Years' War, France ceded its territory east of the Mississippi River to Great Britain. Thereafter, the nearby British 13 colonies, especially the provinces of New Hampshire and New York, disputed the extent of the area called the New Hampshire Grants to the west of the Connecticut River, encompassing present-day Vermont. The provincial government of New York sold land grants to settlers in the region, which conflicted with earlier grants from the government of New Hampshire. The Green Mountain Boys militia protected the interests of the established New Hampshire land grant settlers against the newly arrived settlers with land titles granted by New York. Ultimately, a group of settlers with New Hampshire land grant titles established the Vermont Republic in 1777 as an independent state during the American Revolutionary War. The Vermont Republic abolished slavery before any other U.S. state, and it was admitted to the Union in 1791 as the 14th state. The geography of the state is marked by Green Mountains, which run north to south up the middle of the state, separating Lake Champlain and other valley terrain on the west from the Connecticut River Valley that defines much of its eastern border. A majority of its terrain is forested with hardwoods and conifers. The state has warm, humid summers and cold, snowy winters. Vermont was initially settled in the early 18th century by both the British and French, and conflicts between the two nations continued until the French defeat in the French and Indian War, after which I think I may have copied two different articles here. Hold on. During the American Revolution, Vermont declared independence separately from the original 13 colonies, although the Continental Congress refused to recognize it. Vermont was finally admitted to the Union as the 14th state in 1790 after 14 years as an independent republic. The name of the state is derived from Montagne Verte. I probably said that wrong. French for Green Mountain, giving rise to the state's Green Mountain State nickname. Today, Vermont's mountains are a popular destination for skiers and snowboarders. It is the country's leading producer of maple syrup and is the home of the popular Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So, yeah, date of statehood was March 4th, 1791. Capital is Montpelier. Population is 625,741. That's from the 2010. I think we go back up. I think it's a little more than that now. It is 9,616 square miles. The motto is freedom and unity. The state tree is the sugar maple tree. The state flower is red clover. And the state bird is the hermit thrush. Couple of interesting facts, historical facts that come out of Vermont. On October 5th, 1798, Congressman Matthew Lyon was indicted under the Sedition Act for criticizing President John Adams in a letter he had written to Spooner's Vermont Journal. Fined $1,000 and sentenced to 4 months in jail, Lyon was reelected to Congress while incarcerated. Yeah, if you have a politician, there's very few politicians I trust. But if you have a politician that'll tell the president of the United States to go fuck himself, in a letter, and then goes to jail for doing so, reelect that guy, please. One of the first ski lifts in the United States was developed on a farm in Woodstock in 1934, designed by Wallace Bunny Bertram and powered by an antique Model T Ford engine. The tow pulled people up a hill while holding onto a moving rope. The first monthly Social Security benefit check was issued to Ludlow, Vermont resident Ida Mae Fuller on January 31st, 1940, after retiring from her job as a legal secretary. Fuller received her first check in the amount of $22.54, $2.21 less than the total taxes withdrawn from her salary during the 3 years that she worked under the Social Security program. On May 5th, 1978, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield opened their first Ben & Jerry's homemade ice cream shop in a refurbished gas station in Burlington. In 2000, the infamous brand was acquired by Unilever for roughly $326 million in cash. Vermont became the first state to legally recognize civil unions between partners of the same sex. In April of 2000, 9 years later, the state legislature granted full marriage rights to same-sex couples, as they should. Montpelier, with fewer than 9,000 people, is the smallest state capital in the United States. So there's a little bit of history on Vermont. Pretty interesting. It goes way back. Of course, to the Native Americans, and that, and a lot of that stuff with where they became the 14th state. I don't remember that from high school at all. So yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk. It's not necessarily a cryptid by the normal sense, but it is a it's kind of weird. It is kind of weird. We're going to the Bennington Triangle of Vermont. So the Glastonbury area of southern Vermont has been subject of mysterious disappearances and odd occurrences for many years. The so-called Bennington Triangle is a phrase created by New England author Joseph A. Citro. Here's the thing about cryptids or paranormal anywhere you go in the country. Each state has its own expert. Or at least each area, because I think it's like one of my favorite places to visit, especially when I'm doing ghost hunting and stuff like that, is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There's a guy out there called Mark Nesbitt. He is like the expert on the paranormal of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to the point, and most places in Pennsylvania, honestly, but he's to the point where his books and his stories are what a lot of the ghost tours out there use for their tours. And I think a lot of people don't realize how many ghost tours there really are in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Like you're going to walk down the street for dinner and you're going to pass at least 30 people trying to get you to go on their ghost tour or their ghost hunt or whatever they're doing. But here's the catch. They cannot take you onto the battlefield itself. The battlefield itself closes at 6:00. Like literally strictly, if you were caught on the battlefield after dusk, you will be arrested. They have a big problem with people going out there with metal detectors and trying to basically hunt relics, and they don't want that happening because you'd have holes everywhere. So yeah, but anyways, each area has a specific expert in the paranormal. I can't remember the guy's name from Virginia, but actually I think it's a female in Virginia. I think it's a woman who's the expert out there. But I know in Pennsylvania it's Mark Nesbitt, and then here in Vermont it is Joseph Citro or Citro. But basically he turned the phrase Bennington Triangle during a public radio broadcast in 1992. It describes a region of southwestern Vermont in which a number of people went missing between the years of 1920 and 1950, the best known of which is probably that of Paula Jean Weldon. Glastonbury and its nearby township of Somerset were former logging and industrial towns that flourished in earlier years but fell into a decline toward the late 19th century. Both are now considered ghost towns, as they were unincorporated by the state legislature in 1937. The Bennington Triangle is an area located in the southwestern corner of Vermont, and it is notorious for being the site of numerous mysterious disappearances that have baffled people for decades. The triangle is roughly bounded by the towns of Glastonbury, Woodford, and Bennington, and covers an area of about 100 square miles. Several people have vanished without a trace in this area, leading to wild speculations about what could be behind the mysterious disappearances. From supernatural forces to alien abduction, many theories have been proposed to explain the phenomenon. This mystery has been baffling folks for decades, with mysterious disappearances that have yet to be explained. The Bennington Triangle is an area of high paranormal activity and is considered the home of the mysterious disappearances of 6 people between 1945 and 1950. This article does like to repeat itself a lot. It is thought to be an area where the laws of reality are shifted, and the veil between this world and the other is surprisingly thin, allowing for the strange events too that have occurred there. In addition, there have been reports of strange lights in the sky, strange creatures, and even a phantom hitchhiker, all of which have added to the allure of the Bennington Triangle. And it is believed that this area is the site of many unsolved mysteries and explained experiences. You've already said that, and that the events that have occurred here may be connected to some dark supernatural force. You can't help but feel a chill as you read about these mysterious vanishings throughout the ages. As far back as 1873, there have been reports of disappearances in the Bennington Triangle area of Vermont. In 1945, a local family was hiking in the area and stumbled upon the skeletal remains of Mitty Rivers. We're going to learn about Mitty Rivers here in a minute. Rivers had gone missing 2 years prior in 1943. Over the years, there have been several other reports of disappearances in the area, including mysterious case of Paula Jean Weldon. Weldon vanished in 1946 while walking along the long trail, and her disappearance remains unsolved. More recently, in 1950, James E. Tetford vanished from a train station in Bennington and has never been found. These disappearances have left the area shrouded in mystery and have led to numerous theories as to what might be causing them. Theories abound as to what could be behind it. One of the most popular theories involves paranormal activity, with many believing the disappearances are the work of aliens or some other supernatural force. Some have even suggested that the disappearances were caused by a time warp or an interdimensional portal. Other theories suggest the disappearances were caused by a secret government experiment, or that the area is home to some kind of secret cult or group. Some have even suggested that the disappearances are linked to the occult or to some kind of weird spiritual force. Whatever the case, the truth remains a mystery to this day. Maybe the source of the mysterious vanishing lies within the realm of the unknown. Some have suggested that the disappearances of 5 individuals in the Bennington Triangle in Vermont between 1945 and 1950 could be linked to a supernatural force. This theory states that the mysterious vanishings may be attributed to something paranormal such as aliens, a portal to another dimension, or even the mythical creature known as the Wendigo or the Vendigo. Although there is no hard evidence to support this hypothesis, it has become a popular explanation for the disappearances. Some have claimed that the area is home to a strange phenomena such as strange lights in the sky, unusual sounds, and even the appearance of strange creatures. Others have suggested that the mysterious disappearances may be related to some form of energy vortex or portal to another realm. While these theories are largely unsubstantiated, they remain as possibilities in the minds of many who have studied the Bennington Triangle disappearances. Fascinating to consider the many potential explanations that could explain this unexplainable phenomenon, leaving you wondering what could be the cause. One possibility is that the disappearances were caused by a combination of environmental factors such as dense forests, rugged terrain, and the fact that the area is so remote. This could make it difficult for people to get help or even find their way out of the area. Another potential explanation could be that some of the disappearances were the result of animal attacks or other forms of violence. It is possible that the individuals were attacked by wild animals or even killed by other humans in the area. As the area is so remote and secluded, it's possible that these attacks and killings went unnoticed and unreported. Finally, some have speculated that the disappearances could be due to paranormal activity, such as alien abductions or other supernatural phenomena. While this type of explanation is highly speculative, it could potentially explain why so many people have gone missing in the same area. Over the years, reports of mysterious disappearances have come out of the Bennington Triangle area in Vermont. Reports vary, but it is believed that up to 5 people have gone missing in the area since 1945. These cases remain unsolved, with no clues or evidence as to what caused the disappearances. Some speculate that supernatural forces are at work, while others suggest that the disappearances may be due to natural causes. Regardless, the mysteries of the Bennington Triangle remain unsolved. So yeah, that it's. Hold on one second. Throat was getting a little dry there. Um, it's a weird thing. It's a remote area. There's very few people that live there. Maybe some hermits or whatever. Um, could be animal attacks. Could be people. If you get too close to someone's weed farm, they do have a bad habit of, especially. But I think Vermont. I think it's legal in Vermont now. Um, Lots of bad things would happen. That's the thing. And the fact that nobody knows, it's like the Bermuda Triangle. Nobody knows what's happened to a lot of this stuff in the Bermuda Triangle. So basically, what they're saying. Some people are saying, it could be like a Bigfoot style monster out there, which we'll read about here in a second. It could be they're accidentally walking, like there's some kind of like interdimensional portal out there, and people are just randomly walking through it. Apparently, 5 people in history. Nobody else that's ever walked out there has walked into this, but 5 people in history have walked through an interdimensional portal that took them to a different timeline. Aliens, again, if you believe in aliens and alien abductions, that could be a likely, reason behind it or something that happens. But let's take a look at the 5 people who have been reported missing since 1945. And we're going to start with, of course, Mitty Rivers. Between 1945 and 1950, 5 people disappeared in the surrounding Bennington, Vermont. The first disappearance occurred on November 12th, 1945, when 74-year-old Mitty Rivers disappeared while out hunting in the vicinity of Long Trail Road in Vermont Route 9. Rivers was on a weekend hunting trip with 4 other hunters up the mountains. The morning of November 12th, 1945, Rivers and his son-in-law, Joe Lawson, were walking together before reaching a fork. Rivers and Lawson, I'm pretty sure I'm not saying that name right, would separate here, with Rivers telling Lawson he'd only be going a short distance before he would join them at camp for lunch. As 3 p.m. had come and gone, the rest of the hunting party would begin searching before getting authorities. An extensive search was conducted, but the only evidence discovered was a single rifle cartridge that was found in a stream. The speculation was that Rivers had leaned over and the cartridge had dropped out of his pocket into the water. Rivers was an experienced outdoorsman who was familiar with the local area. And then, of course, as we just read in the article, um, his body was apparently found by a family of hikers. 1946, Paula Jean Weldon. This is apparently the most famous disappearance. Uh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Out of all of them, this is the most famous disappearance. Let's see if we can get some information on her. She was born October 19th, 1928, disappeared on the December 1st, 1946. Okay. So on December 1st, 1946, after finishing her shift at Bennington College Dining Hall, Weldon returned to her room and changed into walking clothes. Her clothing was adequate for the weather that afternoon, but not for the anticipated drop in temperature that night. She packed no bag, took no extra clothing, and did not take any extra money. From all appearances, she did not expect to be gone more than a few hours. Weldon walked down the campus driveway and hitched a ride from State Route 67A near the college entrance to a point on State Route 9 near the Furnace Bridge between downtown Bennington and Woodford Hollow. Local contractor Lewis Knapp picked Weldon up and drove her as far as his house on Route 9, which is about 2.5 miles from the long trail. From this point, Weldon either hitchhiked or walked the rest of the way to the start of the trail in the Woodford Hollow. A group of hikers were walking down the trail as Weldon was walking up. She approached them and asked them a few questions about the long trail. Weldon continued walking in a northerly direction on the road portion of the trail now known as Harbor Road. She was on the trail late in the afternoon, and darkness was falling as she approached the end of Harbor Road. She may have continued into quickly darkening woods. It was presumed that she must have continued her walk along the Bowles Brook Valley, although there are no confirmed sightings of her past Faye Fuller Camp. So Faye Fuller Camp was the last time anybody saw her. Weldon did not return to campus. Her roommate thought she must have gone to the library to study for exams, but the next morning Weldon still had not returned. Once the college administrators were notified, they immediately started a search of the campus itself. The Bennington County State's Attorney was notified, and the county sheriff was brought in to help with the search. Over the next couple of days, Weldon's visit to the Long Trail was discovered. When one of the hikers said she had approached, identified her from the photo in the Bennington Banner newspaper where he worked. Weeks of searching ensued. Bennington College closed for several days, and students and faculty participated in organized searches. Hundreds of volunteers. What did I leave off? Hold on. Hundreds of volunteers, family members, National Guard troops, and firefighters searched for Weldon to no avail. Ground and air searches concentrated on the Long Trail as far as Glastonbury Mountain, 10 miles to the north. The trail's various branches and along Route 9 from Bennington to Brattleboro. Most of these searching assumed Weldon had got lost in the woods, and when no clues were found as to her whereabouts, other theories started to be considered. Alternative theories speculated that Weldon had been in unusually high spirits and had decided to run away to start a new life, was going to meet a secret lover and eloped with him, or had become injured and suffered from amnesia. Darker theories speculated that Weldon was depressed and may have died by suicide, or that she had been kidnapped or murdered. At the time of Weldon's disappearance, there was no state police organization in Vermont, and the state's attorney, county sheriff, and state investigator Almo Vrenzoni was responsible for finding clues. Weldon's father pressed the investigators and Governor Mortimer R. Proctor to bring in additional professional law enforcement help. Proctor asked Governor Raymond Baldwin of Connecticut to lend assistance, and the Connecticut State Police Detective Robert Rundle and State Policewoman Dorothy Scoville were assigned to the case. They interviewed every person who saw or thought they saw Weldon, and every person who lived along the route she took, who were simply in the vicinity of the long trail on that December afternoon. Investigators discovered that one of the last people to see Weldon alive was a lumberjack named Fred Gaudet, who lived along Harbor Road. Gaudet was in the midst of an argument with his girlfriend when Weldon walked by. He stormed off in a jealous rage shortly thereafter, and depending on different statements he made, went to his shack and spent the evening by himself, or he drove up the travel portion of the trail where Weldon was heading. He lied to police on several occasions and was a person of interest both in 1946 and when the case was revisited in 1952. Reportedly, Gaudet told at least two people that he knew within 100 feet where Weldon was buried, but later claimed it was just idle talk. When no evidence was found that a crime had been committed, no body was discovered, and no forensic clues were identified, this avenue of investigation ended. The manner in which Weldon's disappearance was handled by local law enforcement was sharply criticized by her father and many others. Weldon's father pointed out that the lack of statewide law enforcement organization and the lack of training of local sheriffs contributed to a poorly run investigation. Within 7 months of Weldon's disappearance, the Vermont legislature created the Vermont State Police. Other cases, we'll talk about that here in a minute. So yeah, that's the sad story of Paula Jean Weldon. Basically, it does seem, the way the story reads, it does seem like she either committed suicide or was murdered. And we'll never find a body. You know, it's been 80 years almost. 1946 to now, yeah, it's about 80. You're like 78 years. So the body has decomposed, or has been devoured by something. And I'm going to take a wild guess, say Frank Gaudet may not be with us anymore, as he was an adult in 1946. Let's see. Okay. So I'm reading a little bit more on the Wikipedia page. Many saw her depart, including Ernest Whitman, a Bennington Banner employee who gave her directions. She was not wearing a jacket during her journey, and it was 50 degrees outside, later dropping to 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Weldon was alleged to have been seen on the trail itself by an elderly couple who were about 100 yards behind her. According to them, she turned a corner in the trail, and when they reached the same corner, she had disappeared. An extensive search was conducted, which included the posting of a $5,000 reward and help from the FBI, but no evidence of her was ever found. Weldon's disappearance was the inspiration for the 1951 novel Hang Saman by Shirley Jackson. So moving on to 1949 and James Tedford. James Tedford, a veteran, allegedly went missing on December 1st, 1949. 3 days to the day after Weldon was last seen, Tedford, a resident of the Bennington Soldiers' Home, had been in St. Albans visiting relatives and was accompanied to a local bus station, which was the last location where he was seen. According to witnesses, Tedford got on the bus and was still aboard the last stop before arriving in Bennington. Somewhere between the last stop and Bennington, he vanished. His belongings were still in the luggage rack, and an open bus timetable was on his vacant seat. Tony Jinks discusses this claim, saying that the popular conception is that he vanished into thin air while on the bus, but like many missing person stories, there's a gap between when he was last seen and when he was reported missing a week or so later. Regarding Tedford's disappearance, there is enough evidence to suggest he didn't dematerialize, even though no trace of him was ever found. Yeah, that's weird. That's kind of weird right there that somebody would just disappear out of thin air on a bus. 1 year later, we're going to go to 1950 and Paul Jepson. On October 12th, 1950, Paul Buddy Jepson, a special needs child aged 8, had accompanied his mother on an errand. She left her son unattended in the cab of their truck for about an hour while she fed some pigs. When she returned, her son was nowhere in sight. A bloodhound tracked the boy along a logging road to an intersection of back roads near a stream, or according to local legend, where Weldon had disappeared 4 years earlier. Search parties with high-powered flashlights looked for Paul, but nothing was ever found. His father shared with the press how easily it would be to overlook him because of his brown and tan clothing blended in with the fall leaves. So that's a sad one right there. A little 8-year-old boy went missing. Again, very explainable. Unfortunately, could have fallen into the stream. Could have been taken away by an animal. Kidnapped. All that good stuff. And finally, in 1950, Frida Langer, on October 28th, 1950, 16 days after Jepson had vanished, Frida Langer, age 53, and her cousin Herbert Elsner left their family campsite near the Somerset Reservoir to go on a hike. During the journey, Langer slipped and fell into a stream. She told Elsner if he would wait, she would go back to the campsite, change clothes, and catch up with him. When she did not return, Elsner made his way back to the campsite and discovered that Frida Langer had not returned and that nobody had seen her since they had left. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 searches were conducted involving aircraft, helicopters, and up to 300 searchers. No trace of Langer was found during the search. On May 12, 1951, Frida Langer's body was found 3.5 miles from the campsite in the eastern branch of the Deerfield River, an area that had been only lightly searched 7 months before. No cause of death could be determined because of the condition of her remains. No direct connections have been identified that these cases together, other than the general geographic area and time period. Honestly, it sounds like he pushed her in. She drowned, and he left her. Popular culture, the Bennington Triangle was discussed in Season 3, Episode 8 of the television program William Shatner's Weird or What? The episode entitled Mysterious Vanishings and first aired on July 23rd, 2012. The events of 1945 to 1950 are told in episode 67 of Lore, titled The Redcoats. The Bennington Triangle was also featured as one of the haunted locations in the paranormal TV series Most Terrifying Places in America, which aired on the Travel Channel in 2018. The episode titled Unnatural World told the stories about the reportedly missing persons in a 5-year span and the local lore of the Bennington Monster, a Bigfoot-like creature that supposedly roams these wooded areas. The Bennington Triangle is discussed in episode 374 of the podcast My Favorite Murder. The episode aired on April 13th, 2023. Robert Singley, a 27-year-old Bennington College student, got lost in Bennington Triangle but found safe by Vermont State Police in 2008. The Bennington Triangle is discussed in episode 11, Cursed, of the podcast Scared to Death by Dan Cummins. So yeah, not a place I would really want to venture to. Like I said, it's remote, it's way out there, probably not hard to get lost. Or kidnapped or anything like that, honestly. So yeah, but we can't really study about the Bennington Triangle without going into a little bit about the Bennington Monster. The Bennington Monster is said to be a creature with the body of a large cat, the head of a reptile, and the wings of a bird. It is said to be anywhere from 5 to 7 feet tall and is known to emit a piercing scream that can be heard for miles. Some people believe that it is a surviving pterosaur, a prehistoric flying reptile that lived alongside dinosaurs, while others speculate that it is an unknown species of creature. Over the years, there have been numerous sightings of the Bennington Monster, with many people claiming to have seen it, flying through the air or running through the woods. The first reported sighting of the Bennington Monster occurred in 1945 when a man in his mid-70s named Mitty Rivers disappeared while hunting in the area. In the weeks following his disappearance, several other people reported seeing a strange creature in the woods, and some even claimed to have heard its blood-curdling scream. On December 1st, 1946, a woman named Mrs. Paula Weldon vanished while hiking on the long trail near Glastonbury Mountain, an area once known as Patch Hollow. The hollow has since become known as the Bennington Triangle, due to the number of unexplained disappearances and strange occurrences that have happened there. Paula's disappearance sparked a massive search effort, but no trace of her was ever found. She was one of 5 innocent people who vanished without a trace between 1945 and 1950, often referred to as the Patch Hollow Massacre. Believe it or not, the Weldon disappearance was the incident that birthed the Vermont State Police. We just learned about that. Despite numerous searches and investigations, no one has ever been able to explain what happened to these people or to definitively prove the existence of the Bennington Monster. Some people believe that the Bennington Monster is a supernatural creature, while others think that it is a real flesh and blood animal that has yet to be discovered by science. Whatever the case may be, the legend of the Bennington Monster has become an integral part of the town's folklore and continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day. So, like I said, there's not really much out there about the Bennington Monster. Um, Apparently, he is a Bigfoot style creature where he's a cryptid, but that's about closest thing to Bigfoot he is really. Um, and um, like I said, there just really isn't much left out there, or much out there for him. Um, so we're gonna have to move on and go all the way to Lake Champlain for Champ, the Lake Champlain Monster. Our resident monster, Champ, has been sighted for as long as people have been in this area. Since the emergence of a lake from the Champlain Sea nearly 10,000 years ago, Native Americans living along the shores of what is now Lake Champlain have told stories of a mysterious serpentine creature, a horned serpent that lives in the depths of the lake. A possible theory regarding these beliefs centers around Spirit Rock in Essence, New York, which features natural rock structures that resemble petrified snakes. The indigenous people that have long lived and hunted near Lake Champlain, the Abenaki and the Iroquois, have their own legends. about a large creature inhabiting the lake, which looked like a large horned serpent or giant snake. The Abenaki term for this creature is Gedeskog. Early in the 18th century, Abenakis warned French explorers about disrupting the waters of the lake so as not to disturb the serpent. Samuel de Champlain, whom the lake is named after, is often erroneously credited with being the first European to sight Champ. But readings of his account show that he saw something near the St. Lawrence River. Nevertheless, his account of his sighting is of interest to anyone with interest in Lake Monster. Champlain described what he saw like this. There is also a great abundance of many species of fish. Amongst others, there is one called by the natives Chow Sarao. But not saying that right. But which is of various lengths. But the largest of them as these tribes have told me, are from 8 to 10 feet long. I have seen some 5 feet long, which were as big as my thigh. Yeah. And had a head as large as 2 of my fists, with a snout 2 feet and a half long, and a double row of very sharp, dangerous teeth. Its body had a good deal but the shape of a pike. But it is it is protected by scales of a silvery gray color and so strong that a dagger could not penetrate them or pierce them. Historians think Champ is probably a garfish, a class that includes a lake sturgeon, which still live in Lake Champlain today. Champlain's description of the creature sounds very much like a garfish, albeit much larger than usual. Modern sightings started in Bowaga Bay, Port Henry, New York in 1819. This spot remains an excellent place to launch a Champ search. If you are fortunate enough to see Champ, you may be able to place your name on the big board of Champ sightings. Yes, there's a big. Take a look at this, guys. That is all the Champ sightings in Bowaga Bay. Apparently, there have been sightings as recently as August 20th or August of 2019. The next famous account features in the Plattsburgh Republican newspaper on Saturday, July 24th, 1819. Let's go ahead. But yeah, those are all the sightings. Everything you see here is the sightings of Champ, the lake monster up there. The next famous account appears in the Plattsburgh Republican newspaper on Saturday, July 24th, 1819. Captain Crum was aboard a scow on Bowaga Bay the previous Thursday morning when he reported a black monster about 187 feet long and with a head resembling a seahorse that reared more than 15 feet out of the water. He claimed the monster he saw had 3 teeth, eyes the color of a peeled onion, and a white star on its forehead and a belt of red around the neck. This is a remarkable level of detail concerning an object that was, according to the witness, some 200 yards away. In 1873 was a busy year for Champ. A New York Times story reported that a railroad crew had seen the head of an enormous serpent in Lake Champlain with bright silvery scales that glistened in the sun. Both the men and the monster parted ways at that point. In July that same year, Clinton County Sheriff Nathan H. Mooney reported an enormous snake or water serpent he thought was 25 to 35 feet long. Then in August, the steamship W.B. Eddy encountered Champ running into it. The ship nearly turned over, according to the tourists on board. Never one to miss a trick, showman P.T. Barnum offered a reward of $50,000 in 1873 for the hide of the great Champlain monster to add to my Mammoth World's Fair show. Another group sighting came in 1945 when passengers of the SS Ticonderoga claimed to have seen a creature. By 1992, sightings totaled 180, with approximately 600 people claiming to have seen Champ all over the lake. Eager children crossing the lake by ferry often look for the lake monster, hoping for a sighting. A few people even managed to snap photos of what they claimed to be Champ, much like his mythical relative at Loch Ness. Champ sightings and photos are much debated and analyzed. The 21st century saw a new wave of sightings, which numbered in the double digits each summer and prompted interest from Japanese television. The Today Show, NBC's Unsolved Mysteries, and Fox Network's sightings. In 2003, the Discovery Channel did a special on America's Loch Ness Monster in the wake of 3 new sightings by the June of that year. Champ has been written about in Discover magazine and in the scholarly journals. And although many people are skeptical of sightings, Champ is now protected by law on both sides of the Lake Champlain, just in case. What do we have here? Welcome. Let's see. Just in case. 1981, Port Henry, New York, declares their waters a safe haven for Champ. 1982, the state of Vermont passes a House resolution protecting Champ. And 1983, in New York, both the state assembly and the state senate passed resolutions protecting Champ. Today, Champ is celebrated whether he exists or not. In Vermont, a baseball team is known as the Lake Monsters with a Champ mascot. A Champ statue sits by the water in Port Henry, New York, and images of the monster looking cheerful and definitely not scary appear throughout the area at local businesses, on T-shirts, in children's books, and more. A historic marker even sits on the shore in Clinton County in honor of everyone's favorite lake monster. Let's see. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. I hope everybody's enjoying it so far. It's like I said, it's not a lot going on in Vermont, but there is a lot of interesting stories for these creatures that are out there. But let's see. Go redoing. Since 1819, cryptozoological studies of Lake Champlain have been done with the hopes of proving the elusive creature exists. But alas, no sign of Champ. Few cryptozoologists, sorry about that. The wife just showed me, she got me a Beetlejuice soda. Few cryptozoologists deny the possibility of Champ's existence, states W. Hayden Blackman in his The Field Guide to North American Monsters of 1998. And many openly accepted the creature, believing it to be a plesiosaur, zeuglodon, or other unknown or erstwhile extinct creature. So this is now 2 states we've done. We've done Ohio. Now we're doing Vermont. Both states have their own lake monsters. Vermont, of course, has Champ, the Lake Champlain monsters, and Ohio has Bessie in Lake Erie. So it's interesting. Again, I've said it before with Bigfoot. Every state has Bigfoot sightings. To my knowledge, every state has Bigfoot sightings. And every state almost always has a lake monster. Even Virginia. When I lived in Virginia, and I used to go ghost hunting on what is it? Fort. It's a fort. I keep wanting to say Fort Eustis, but Fort Eustis is still an active Army base. Fort Monroe. There's actually been, rumors. If you haven't seen Fort Monroe, it is one of the original forts built by, I'm talking like by pilgrims, by settlers way back in the early 1700s, to defend Jamestown and the James River from pirates, and other nations and that, like France and that. And it was just recently by Barack Obama declared a state national park. And if you go to see it, it is almost like a fortress inside. It's even got a moat around it. Like there's a moat goes around this fort, and there's only one way in and out with a vehicle, and you have to wait. Like if one side's going, you have to wait for the other side to go because there's only room for one car to go through. But there is a rumor that there was a sea monster in the moat. So I'm starting to think we're going to learn about this as we keep going, that every state has some sort of sea monster, lake monster, and a Bigfoot creature, which is fine. People know what they see, and everyone's welcome to like what they see, or believe what they see, which is fine. But yeah, we're gonna move on now to the Pigman of Northfield, Vermont. The Pigman, which of course you can see in both the picture, my picture on here, that is right in the dead center, and then there's one in the top right corner. Those are basically different images of the Pigman. We're gonna take this one with a grain of salt. I'm gonna give you that a heads up on that one. And you'll see why when I read the story. In 1971, a farmer in Northfield, Vermont, went to investigate some strange noises coming from his backyard one night. He turned on his outside light and he peered out the kitchen window, expecting to see a raccoon or a plump squirrel sifting through his garbage. Instead, he met the gaze of a man-sized figure lurking along the edges of the yellow lights. His body was covered in white hair, and he had the facial features of a pig. A few seconds later, the being darted back into the shadows. A few days passed before the Pigman was spotted again, this time by a group of students outside of a high school during a dance. Reports are vague as to who ran away faster, the students or the creature, but both quickly left the scene. This is an article. I have two articles here. I'm going to tell you that right now, because this article says the Pigman's real name or identity is not specified in the context. Therefore, it is impossible to provide a definitive answer without further information about the specific individual referred to as the Pigman of Northfield, Vermont. The Pigman is said to be a half-human, half-pig hybrid that wears a pig's head as a mask and kills pigs and people alike. There's another article. The Pigman does have a name. The story of the Pigman begins in 1951 when a 17-year-old boy named Sam Harris went missing in Northfield, Vermont. Sam was a rebellious teenager and liked to cause mischief and prank his neighbors. On the night before Halloween, he went out with some eggs to vandalize some houses, but he never returned home. His parents reported him missing, and a massive search was launched involving hundreds of locals and police officers. They searched for weeks, but they never found any trace of Sam. Some people speculated that Sam had run away from home, or that he had been kidnapped or killed by someone. But others had a more sinister theory that Sam had encountered something evil in the woods that night, something that either devoured him or transformed him into a monster. They said that Sam had stumbled upon an ancient ritual site where Satanists or witches performed sacrifices and summoned demons. Fair warning, everybody: Satanists, Satan worshippers don't, or I guess members of the Church of Satan do not do that. Just saying, they don't summon demons or perform sacrifices. They said that Sam had either been possessed by the devil himself or that he had been attacked by a beast that wore his skin and his face. Whether Sam Harris became the Pigman or not, the legend of the creature soon spread throughout Northfield and beyond. People claim to have seen a strange figure lurking in the woods near Devil's Wash Bowl, a natural pond surrounded by cliffs and caves. The figure was described as being naked, covered in white hair, and wearing a hollowed out pig's head over his own. The pigman was said to have a taste for pork and would slaughter pigs from nearby farms and eat their entrails. He would also wear their heads as trophies or masks and sometimes mate with them, producing half pig offspring. First reported sighting of the pigman was in 1971 when a group of high school students were drinking behind the school during a dance. They saw a creature emerge from the trees on two legs, carrying a bloody pig's head in one hand and a knife in the other. The students ran away in terror and told their friends what they had seen. Soon after, a farmer reported that some of his pigs had been killed and mutilated into the night. More sightings followed over the years, mostly by teenagers who ventured into the woods at night to look for the pigman or to party. Some said they heard his squeals and grunts or saw his glowing eyes in the dark. Some said they found his footprints on his lair where he kept bones and skulls of his victims. Someone said they were chased or attacked by him but managed to escape. Some said they saw him with his pig children who looked like deformed humans with snouts and tusks. There are several possible explanations for the phenomenon. And it's going to be up to you how you feel about this. The pigman is a real cryptid and a hybrid creature that lives in the woods and preys on pigs and humans. He could be a result of genetic mutation, interbreeding, or supernatural intervention. The second explanation could be that the pigman is Sam Harris himself, who survived his disappearance and became insane. He could have been traumatized by something he saw or experienced in the woods, or he could have been influenced by drugs or cults. He could have adopted a pig-like persona as a way of coping or hiding. The next explanation could be the pigman is someone who impersonates Sam Harris or mimics his legend. He could be a prankster, a serial killer, or a mentally ill person who enjoys scaring people or harming animals. The next explanation would be that the pigman is an urban legend that has no basis in reality. He could be a product of imagination, exaggeration, or fabrication by people who want to create or perpetuate a mystery. So, guys, what do you think? Does pigman exist? I can give you my opinion, and I think it's a mix between an urban legend and I think Sam Harris just went crazy. Whether it be the drugs, whether it be he got lost in the woods and became feral, I don't know. But that's what it kind of reads like. It just seems like it's going to be an urban legend that you tell by a campfire, a story you tell by a campfire, or a story that you tell kids, to scare the shit out of them on Christmas on Halloween. But it also could just be that Sam Harris went insane and just moved and lived in the woods his whole life. I assume you're going to agree that it's probably more than likely an urban legend. That the story kind of seems a little out there, that there's a hybrid man pig. Now they said man bear pig. Maybe I could believe something. I could believe something similar to that. But this is like a human man pig. So yeah, and I tend to agree. I think it's more of an urban legend, honestly. But in a way, urban legends are part of your cryptids. Like I said before, your cryptids are part of your culture. State's culture, state's history. Sometimes it's a history they want to ignore. Or same thing with the paranormal, with the ghosts. A lot of it's a lot of history that the states want to ignore. They want to pretend this didn't happen. But it's still part of your history. Whether you live in Ohio or Wyoming or Vermont or Virginia or Mississippi, Alabama, California, any of them. This is it's urban legends are still part of your history and part of your culture. True or not, so it's okay to celebrate them. The only other monster we had was the mysterious, and is really everything kept coming back. Everything I looked up on this monster, there's a what is it? The mysterious black beast of Snake Mountain, I believe is what it was called. And there's really not much information about it out there. It just keeps bringing me back to the same article that's just very long-winded and talks more about this person's growing up on Snake, I guess at the bottom of Snake Mountain. So we're not really going to dive deep into that one. We'll save some of these for a little bit later. But there's a bunch of other, not necessarily cryptids, but other paranormal stories in Vermont. Vermont oddities and stuff like that, like the premature burial in Vermont. Basically, it is one man's polarizing fear of being buried alive in Vermont. He created himself, from what I've read, he created himself a grave that had a window. He built a grave that had a window, and just in case he was ever buried alive, this way he could escape. So in the quaint New England town of New Haven, Vermont, sits Evergreen Cemetery, home to hundreds of traditional grave sites. But one burial vault stands out, that of Dr. Timothy Clark Smith. His final resting place features a glass window at the top, allowing visitors to peer inside at the doctor's remains. The fear of being buried alive is the fear of being placed in a grave while still alive, most likely the result of being incorrectly pronounced dead. Before the advent of modern medicine, the fear was not entirely irrational. Throughout history, there have been many cases of people being accidentally buried alive. We've heard it all the time, different cultures in, what is it, like in Romania, they would actually stake the dead bodies because they believed that vampires were real and would come out, after someone's been buried. They stake the body to make sure that the body with the person was dead and they weren't going to come back out. They would bury them with like crosses and garlic and all the other all the goodies that go with fighting vampires. So it's not crazy that this gentleman, I guess in the 17th century, didn't really say, let me see. if I can find out when he was buried. The 19th century, I'm sorry. 1821 to 1893, the man lived. So he would have been, 72 when he died? Um, He was a school teacher, a merchant, a clerk for the Treasury Department. Obtained his degree he basically got his MD in 1855, which led to his position as a staff sergeant in the Russian Army. Smith was a worldly man with an eclectic career. He worked as a teacher, merchant, and clerk before pursuing his passion for medicine. After graduating from the University of New York in 1855, Smith served as a surgeon in the Russian Army during the Crimean War. He went on to become the U.S. consul in Odessa, Russia, for over a decade. Well-traveled and erudite, Smith earned the nickname Odessa from his globe-trotting friends. Dr. Smith died at the Logan House in Middlebury, Vermont on February 25th, 1893, despite local rumors that he passed away on Halloween. An article that appeared in the Middlebury Register reported that Dr. Smith died suddenly on Saturday morning at the Logan House. The Logan House Hotel where he had been living. After breakfast, he walked out into the office, stood by the stove when stricken. So basically, he was afraid of being buried alive. He passed away, and apparently to this day, you can still walk by his grave and see his remains, like his rotting remains, through that window. I don't know how clean it is at this point. I would assume that with all the mold and mildew and moss and everything from inside, it probably wouldn't be much left to look at either. But yeah, I mean that's always been interesting to see what the things people will go through to prevent, what they're afraid of. This gentleman was afraid of being buried alive, so he built a window to make sure that somebody could either see him and he could let him know, hey, what do you call it? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think England as well used to put a bell on graves, and they would put they would basically tie a string to the deceased person's hand or finger or something like that, so that if they did get buried alive, they could ring the bell, and the gravedigger or the cemetery watchman could dig up the grave and go, holy shit, somebody was buried alive. We gotta save this person before they actually die. There's a lot of lore that comes with graveyards and cemeteries and that. But let's go to this next one. Black Agnes, sit on her lap and you might die. So all these are basically, I'm not going to go through every one of these stories, but these are all a bunch in the Vermonter. The website is vermonter.com, vermonter.com /Vermont myths and stories. I'll try to post the link on the Twitter page later on. So if you're interested in more weird myths, legend stories, all that good stuff from Vermont, you can go here and start and read up on some. There's some interesting things here. A lot of them, like I said, don't really go with what we're talking about today, like the cryptids, but there's still interesting stuff. Well, let's go to this. Vermont's Black Agnes. Sit on her lap and you might die. Let's see. Black Agnes, the cemetery statue that kills those who dare sit on her lap. I'm going to tell you guys a heads up, too, just like earlier when we were reading the weird news. I have not read any of these. I just found the website and thought it would be interesting to talk about real quick because, like I said earlier, there's not much going on with Vermont cryptid-wise. Now, when we get to Texas, we're going to probably have to do like a 2 or 3 episode what do you call it? Trilogy almost with how many cryptids Texas has. But a copper statue located at Greenmount Cemetery in Montpelier, Vermont, is that of a male figure sitting with closed eyes, looking upwards, his head covered with a shawl. Like many similar legends, Black Agnes supposedly is cursed with the power to some pretty vile to do some pretty vile things to those who may be tempted to sit on his lap. The list of not so wonderful circumstances include a certain death within 7 days and a range of just plain bad luck. So is it the ring? I think it might be the ring, guys. Yes, you do. You have at least 30 that I've seen. And it's going to take me probably at least 2 or 3 episodes to get through most of them. Because the thing about Texas, they probably have a lot of interesting ones with how vast and wide the state is. Of course, it's I think is it the largest or the second largest? I can't remember. I know it's between them and Alaska state in the union. But there's also so much open land in Texas that it's not crazy to think that there are probably a lot of animals down there or a lot of cryptids down there to talk about. So Joe Citro, the Vermont expert on authority on ghostly and just plain weird, explains it in, well, there's a video here. I'm not going to, of course, play that. One thing remains a fact. The statue is bestowed the title Thanatos, the Greek word for death. John Aristus Hubbard was Montpelier basically he lived from 1847 to 1899. He was a Montpelier businessman with enough wealth to have this statue created and watching over his final resting place. John Hubbard was a businessman, like we just read that. It was said that he contested and inherited a sizable. Yeah, that was just weird. Something just fell in this house right now, in this room, and that was kind of weird. That's what I thought. I thought it was Alaska, but I know it was. It's not too big of a difference between the two. Yeah, it was weird. So I don't know what the hell just fell. Let's see. It was said that he contested and inherited a sizable amount of money from a wealthy aunt who had originally left the city of Montpelier a virtual fortune. He set about the task of building a public library for Montpelier, but at about 1/3 of the cost of his deceased aunt had intended. Needless to say, people in the area considered him greedy and mean-spirited. John passed away in 1899 and at age 53, after obtaining his inheritance. The executors of John Hubbard's will were responsible for providing a monument to adorn his grave in Greenmount Cemetery. William Paul Dillingham, governor of Vermont from 1888 to 1890, took on most of the responsibility for finding someone to construct the odd monument now known as Black Agnes. It was created by Austrian sculptor Karl Bitter, who had run a studio in New Jersey. The inscription on the wall framing the figure from the back contains the lines from William Cullen Bryant's poem Thanatopsis, Thoughts on Death, known to most all literate Americans of the 19th century. Thou go not like the quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dream. The lines suggest that Hubbard did not die in shame, but met his death with a clear conscience. Let me see if I can. I want you guys to see this statue. Let me see if I'm able to save it. I might be able to save this. Hold on. I'm going to try to added in here real quick, and I want to show you guys a statue. The statue looks pretty sweet, actually. Let's get rid of that one. 1 second, guys. I'm trying to see where it downloaded to. There it is. So this is the Black Agnes statue. Very creepy looking. I just got a message from Jen telling me to delete her. So Jen, it was actually more along the lines. I wanted to make sure that it was going to be a picture I was able to download. Because a lot of the pictures I try to download for these shows are different. They're not like JPEGs and that, so they're not able to upload onto StreamYard. But there's the picture. Beautiful, like I said, beautiful statue, beautiful grave. But we read the conscripture, the line suggests that Hubbard did not die in shame, but met his death with a clear conscience. Some of the reported odd occurrences surrounding Black Agnes included glowing red eyes at night, blood-curdling screams, and other creepy noises. Some people believe that the statue was haunted due to the misdeeds and demeanor of Hubbard while he was still alive. Stories were told about a number of people who dared to sit in the lap of Black Agnes, only to be found dead later. So that's the end of the article. It's like I said, as you can see, it's a beautiful grave. It's a beautiful statue. Just don't sit in his lap, apparently, because if you sit in its lap, from the sound of it, you won't be alive much longer. But see, like I said, stories like that, I enjoy it's the dark history. It's the history of the country. It's part of the culture of a state, and that's why I wanted to go through, and I decided to go through each of the 50 states. It's like I said, it's part of the history, and that's why I wanted to do this 50 states of the cryptids, because it's interesting to me. It's interesting to see the difference between each state. Where in Ohio we have the Frogman of Loveland, the Loveland Frogman, where versus Vermont we have the Pigman, the Pigman of North. What is it? What did I say it was? North Vermont or something like that. And the likelihood, like I said, Frogman they're both celebrated. I mean, well, I don't know about the Pigman. Frogman is really celebrated here in Ohio. They have a big festival for him and everything. Whereas the Pigman, like I said, we read the story, and the likelihood is that the Pigman is an urban legend. But it's still interesting. It's still fun to read. Let's do one more, and then we'll go ahead and call it a day. Let's see which one is most interesting. Let's do the Legend of Johnny Seesaw. How about that? There's other ones on here, like I said, on this website. If you get a chance to check it out, it's the Vermonter.com. But there's like, where's Ethan Allen buried? Ethan Allen was a controversial Revolutionary War hero. The history describes as fiercely independent, a bit crude, brash, and undoubtedly daring. There's the icy cold heart of a Vermont winter storm, Willoughby Lake Monster and other oddities, Vermont's deep frozen folks, Slippery Skin, Big Bear, Bigfoot, or Indian. There's a bunch of stories on here if anybody's interested to check them out. So Johnny Seesaw. Vermont's legendary Johnny Seesaws fades into history but is rebuilt. Johnny Seesaws was built in 1920 by Russian logger Ivan Sesow. I'm guessing it's Sesow. It's Sesow. Sesow called his enterprise the Wonderview Log Pavilion and began the legend of his wild Saturday night dances, homemade moonshine, and rumored sin cabins out back. Throughout the Roaring 20s, thanks to Prohibition, few lawmen, and many loggers, the legend of Johnny Seesaws continued to grow. Around 1930, Sesow apparently bet the dance hall in one of his famous poker games and lost. The buildings were sold and remained unused for some 8 years. In 1938, Bill and Mary Parrish bought the rundown property, constructed bunk rooms, installed plumbing, electricity, a kitchen, and a central furnace, and renamed one of the first ski lodges in the United States, Johnny Seesaws. For the next 4 decades, Johnny Seesaws catered to the thousands of skiers, including a president of the United States, the first aviator to cross the Atlantic, Charles Lindbergh, and a bevy of famous and infamous personalities. Well, how come you say you'll name Charles Lindbergh, but you won't name the president, huh? At the beginning of World War II, the concept of Army ski troops originated at Johnny Seesaws and eventually became the 10th Mountain Division. Johnny Seesaws operated for 34 years as a restaurant and lodging establishment, but closed for business in 2014. In 2015, it went up for public auction. The original lodge was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2008, but could not be salvaged and was eventually dismantled after being sold in 2018. Johnny Seesaws was Johnny Seesaws was bought and totally rebuilt by new owners and reopened. Wasn't very much of a weird story, was it? I don't know why it's on there. But guys, I think that's going to do. We've gone for about 2 hours and 17 minutes. There's plenty more, like I said, on that page to talk about. So if you really want, if you're really interested in that, go ahead and take a look. Like I said, it's the Vermonter.com. But guys, where can you find me at? You can, of course, find me at everywhere, on Facebook, on X, on on YouTube, at the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. You can also email me any movie suggestions you guys want to hear or want to take a look at, or want me to deep dive. At bloodybinge@gmail.com. You can also find me on Twitch. I'm getting really behind because of again, the fall is really busy for me. So you can also find me on Twitch at SewerDweller78. Again, I don't really stream that often right now because my oldest is playing football. It's a senior year of football. That starts tonight, which is why we're going to start doing the podcast a little earlier. Within the next month or so, probably next couple of weeks, we might actually have to change the day of the podcast because Friday and Saturdays are going to be really busy and really hectic for me. Once Hell's Dungeon opens up on the 14th of September. So we might have to change the days of the podcast just because of that, at least for September and October. So keep an eye out on the web, on the X page or the Facebook page. Again, Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. Next week we're probably going to come back to the original premise of the show. But you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to spin the wheel to see what state we're going to next. So give me 1 second to bring up the website. Here we go. All right, so we've already done Ohio and Vermont, so we're going to take those off of here. And let's take a spin and see where we are going to land this week. 1 second, it's still spinning. And we are going to... Come on, stop. Oh, I gotta hit stop. Whoops. Well, we're going to Kentucky. So it looks like our next stop on the road on the 50 states of cryptids, we're going to Kentucky. That'll be an interesting one, just south of Ohio. And there's probably going to be a lot of interesting ones in Kentucky because they have a lot of mountains and a lot of not sober people seeing things. Let's put it that way. So yeah, next time we see you next month at some point, we will be doing the Cryptids of Kentucky. But guys, I hope you all have a really good night, and remember to keep watching horror movies and keep your eyes up for cryptids. Everybody have a great night. Goodbye. Oh, I almost forgot. You guys have a good one.